I'm supported by the former Vice President Dick Cheney, former Congress member Liz Cheney.
She gave her first solo interview to Brian Taff. Ever heard of him? We hadn't either. He's a local action news anchor for the local ABC station in Philly. And Kamala could not get it together.
When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I was a teenager. I grew up in a community of hardworking people, construction workers and nurses and teachers. And I try to explain to some people who may not have had the same experience, but a lot of people will relate to this. I grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn, and I was raised to believe and to know that all people deserve dignity. And that we as Americans have a beautiful character. We have ambitions and aspirations and dreams, but not everyone necessarily has access to the resources that can help them fuel those dreams and ambitions. So when I talk about building an opportunity economy, it is very much with the mind of investing in the ambitions and aspirations and the incredible work ethic of the American people, and creating opportunity for people, for example, to start a small business.
The question was, how are you going to bring down prices? And Kamala's answer was, I grew up around construction workers who took care of their lawns.
I want you to continue to notice as this campaign goes, there's something wrong with her. There's absolutely something wrong when she talks. I can't quite figure it out. But she gets the big gulp, like she's almost unsure of what to say, and it's visible. You can basically see her body go into a contortion. Yeah, okay, let me spit this one out. It's very weird. It's very weird. I'm not making fun of her. I'm not making light. I'm showing you guys that there's something just not quite right. Don't know what it is. But let's continue. So now she decides to do an interview. It looks to be an off-the-cuff interview, like she's basically just handling this guy's questions. And it's from an ABC affiliate, probably somewhere outside of Johnstown or wherever she was. And you remember the debate. You looked at the debate, you see a woman who is well coiffed, her hair was perfect, great wig that night. Her makeup was perfect, and she just looked like a princess out on the debate stage. She obviously didn't have the Hollywood makeup people when she did this interview, and she had her hair, the different hairpiece on, and she's looking kind of haggard. So let's listen into how this went.
Pleasure to meet you. Thanks for your time today. Our audience appreciates your time as well.
Of course.
As you know, we're sitting here in a state, and arguably in front of an audience that 54 days from now could decide the outcome of this presidential election. Yeah. You hear it more than I do. People want to know more about you and about your specific plans. At the debate the other night, you talked about creating an opportunity economy. I wonder if we can drill down on that a little bit. When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
All right. I'm going to stop when he says the question because I'm going to remind you what the question is, and then you can listen and tell me if she answers the question. So you talk all about this opportunity economy. What are a few things you're actually going to do to lower prices? Tell us.
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard.
Does that sound familiar? It's the exact same answer and speech that she gave at the debate. The exact same answer. She couldn't come up with a simple... Dude, what are you going to do? Well, I was a middle-class kid, but I'll continue.
She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I was a teenager. I grew up in a community of hardworking people, construction workers and nurses and teachers, and I try to explain to some people who may not have had the same experience, a lot of people will relate to this. I grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn, and I was raised to believe and to know that all people deserve dignity.
This is what happens when there's no teleprompter and maybe no earpiece. She's completely stuck. She's trying to recall the answers that these people told her to say, whereas if you actually believed it, you would already know the answer. But she's, okay, what do I say here?
And that we as Americans have a beautiful character. We have ambitions and aspirations and dreams, but not everyone necessarily has access to the resources that can help them fuel those dreams and ambitions. So when I talk about building an opportunity economy, it is very much with the mind of investing in the ambitions and aspirations and the incredible work ethic of the American people, and creating opportunity for people, for example, to start a small business.
Big swallow.
My mother, worked long hours, and our neighbor helped raise us. We used to call her, I still call her, our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small business owners. I learned who they are from my childhood, and she was...
What small business owner does she know that wants to pay 40% unrealized capital gains tax in her entire life? Since she loves small business owners, please tell me where these small business owners that want to pay, 50, 60, 70% income tax. Love to know.
A community leader, she hired locally, she mentored. Our small businesses are so much a part of the fabric of our communities, not to mention, really, I think, the backbone of America's economy. So my opportunity economy plan includes giving startups a $50,000 tax deduction to start their small business. It used to be $5,000. Nobody can start a small business with $5,000. But investing in people's innovative ideas and giving them the ability to go for it. Opportunity economy means, look, we don't have enough housing in America. We have a...
Does she realize that you can't earn a tax credit for, till you actually file your taxes? There's nobody who's going to be able to start a business. Go, okay, so I've got $50,000 coming for the government. Mr. Landlord, I want to lease this property. Will you lease it to me? I'm going to pay you back when Kamala gives me that tax credit. Well, you don't get a tax credit unless you're deducting it. It comes off of the revenue that you have to make beforehand. You're not giving anybody anything.
Housing supply shortage. And what that means, in particular for so many younger Americans, the American dream is elusive. It's just actually not attainable. So part of my plan is to work with the private sector and housing developers to give them a tax credit, to be able...
Tax credit, understand. That's after you've generated revenue. You don't pay taxes unless you've generated revenue.
Partner with us as the government to build, and my goal is 3 million new homes by the end of my first term. In addition, to help people who just want to get their foot in the door, literally. And so giving first-time home buyers a $25,000 down payment assistance to be able to just get in the door, and then they will do the work that they need to do to save and to pay that mortgage and to build wealth for themselves and their family. These are some examples of what I mean when I talk about an opportunity economy, and a lot of it has to do with just the community I was raised in and the people that I admired who work hard, and deserve to have, their dreams fulfilled because they're prepared to work for it.
Okay, so she went on for a number of minutes there, talked about her family, her friends, and how she was brought up, and I was at this. I asked you how you're going to lower prices. What are you going to do to lower prices, cost? What are you doing? I'm going to the flowery unicorn. We're going to have this great thing where people are going to be able to buy houses with, a $25,000 down payment. Good luck. It's not ever going to happen. She had a perfect opportunity. She could have said, we're going to, like, if you ask Trump that, I know what the answer is. We're going to start drilling right now and get the pumps cheaper right off the bat. What that's going to do is allow trucks to get on the road and start, not having to have the cost of the gas or diesel so high. So if the cost for moving goods is cheaper, then you can lower your prices. People are going to be able to work on farms and do different things, blah, 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 blah. What the hell was she talking about? Yeah, we're going to, tax credit. I don't even think she knows what a tax credit is. I worked in entrepreneurial zones, what do they call them, opportunity zones here in Florida, where you could buy a property and you would have reduced taxes and tax credits. I know exactly what they are. You go ahead and build here, and at the end of the year, if you're renovating a house, whatever, at the end of that, when you sell it, or later on when you file your taxes, then you can get a tax credit because you've bought the property, you've renovated the property, you're either keeping it as a rental or you're selling it, but in any event, you've made money. Now, instead of owing the government 30, 40, 50%, we're going to give you $50,000 credit so you don't have to pay us that kind of money. That's 12 months from now. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Has no idea.
At the debate and at previous appearances about turning the page on the past, and in fact here today in Johnstown, you're talking about a new way forward.
Yeah.
I think some people have a question, given maybe your current role as Vice President of the United States, how different you are from Joe Biden. And so I wonder if there are one or two spots, policy areas or approaches where you would say, I'm a different person.
What a stupid question. I'm a woman, I think. I squat to pee. What do you mean, how is she different? What he's trying to get her right now to do is distance herself from Joe. Here's how I'm different. Which means for the last 3.5 years, you must have been a chameleon, because whatever her answer is here, coming, it's going to be BS. So let's hear.
Well, I'm obviously not Joe Biden. And, I offer a new generation of leadership. And so, for example, thinking about developing and creating an opportunity economy where...
She right back to the answer that she gave in question number 1. Let me just go ahead and revert back to the other question. But you already answered it. We already heard this opportunity economy crap.
It's about investing in areas that really need a lot of work.
I swear I just didn't replay the same thing. She's saying the exact same thing. By the way, the government, not that she understands, the government can't invest in anything. Government doesn't have any money. They take it from us.
And maybe focusing on, again, the aspirations and the dreams, but also just recognizing that at this moment in time, some of the stuff we could take for granted years ago, we can't take for granted anymore. For example...
Whose fault is that?
Another plan that I have that is a new approach is to expand the child tax credit to $6,000 for young families.
She just said that. She just said that in the answer to question number 1. She's just repeating herself.
The first year of their child's life, because that is obviously a very critical stage of development of a child. And a lot of young parents need the help to buy a car seat or a crib.
She literally just, I swear to God, I did not cut and paste this. She is giving the exact same answer to the next question. Word for word, tax credit, buy a child seat. She's saying the exact same thing. And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way I'm watching this. This person is a presidential candidate and can't even answer the most simple of questions.
Or clothes for their kids. And so my
big swallow
approach is about new ideas, new policies that are directed at the current moment. And also, to be very honest with you, my focus...
Well, you weren't honest before. Right.
...is very much in what we need to do over the next 10, 20 years to catch up to the 21st century around, again, capacity, but also challenges.
Joe Biden's child tax credit's $3,000 and Kamala's is $6,000. Of all the things, border, inflation, crime, Israel, housing, the only difference between Kamala and Joe Biden is a $3,000 difference in the child tax credit.
This guy's nodding his head and he's probably thinking, this is one ignorant, you know what. She has no clue what she's talking about. Why did you people have me go out and talk to her?
What did she just say? How are you different than Joe Biden? The entire goal of her campaign is to separate herself from Joe Biden. The campaign slogan is a new way forward. It's a new way forward from Joe Biden. So how exactly are you a new way forward? She couldn't answer.
Crime and public safety are two major issues right at the forefront of voters' minds. In Philadelphia as well, where crime is a significant issue. When we talk about crime, the conversation turns to gun safety as well. And I think you actually probably caught a lot of people off guard, maybe a bit by surprise in the debate the other night when you mentioned that you are a gun owner. I know you said it in 2019 as well. I want to talk about your values on this issue. When it comes to gun ownership, where do you draw the line in America on gun ownership and gun use?
I'm sorry. What do you mean, where does she draw the line? She doesn't have the capacity to draw the line. It's not up to her to, quote, draw the line. This is something specifically that is in this little thing, I know they don't like it, this thing called the Constitution. It is not up to her to, quote, draw the line.
Well, like you said, Brian, I am a gun owner, and Tim Walz, my running mate, is also a gun owner. We're not taking anybody's guns away. I support the Second Amendment, and I support reasonable gun safety laws. Part of my approach to this is I was a career prosecutor for most of my career. I have personally prosecuted homicide cases. I have personally looked at autopsies. I have personally seen what assault weapons do to the human body. And so I feel very strongly that it is consistent with the Second Amendment and your right to own a gun to also say we need an assault weapons ban. She's making that line, creating that line. It's something that, she's going to just say, we're going to have an assault weapons ban. Okay. Literally tools of war. They were literally designed to kill a lot of human beings quickly.
You should send her to, Iran or someplace with an AR-15 and see how functional that rifle is as a, quote, tool of war. See how that works out. I don't think she understands the difference between an automatic, a semi-automatic. She has no clue.
I say we need universal background checks. The majority of NRA members support that. Why? Because it's just reasonable. You just might want to know before someone can buy a lethal weapon if they've been found by a court to be a danger to themselves or others.
I don't know. Any of you guys ever see that in the Second Amendment? I'm pretty sure that that's not in there. So I don't care what you think, Kamala. I don't care what you feel. And now you know for sure you shouldn't care what she said when she says she's not coming for it. She just said, I'm coming for it. No, I'm a gun owner too. I'm not coming for your guns, except I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that to make sure that, you don't get it.
You just might want to know.
Two final questions, if I might.
Sure.
On the appeal of the man you were running against, as you drove here today, you likely saw a lot of Trump signs.
Yeah, that's another thing. My wife's got friends up in Pennsylvania, especially Western Pennsylvania. All you see is Trump signs. But the media tells us she's ahead.
He has an historic appeal in this country. And as you are someone running against him and trying to understand that, I wonder how you distill it. What do you understand his appeal to be? And how do you speak to his voters, or maybe people who just share his values but are open to something else?
It's going to be hard for her to answer because she doesn't care what we think. This is a perfect opportunity he set her up well. What do you want to do to appeal to Trump voters?
Based on experience and a lived experience. No. In my heart, I know. In my soul, I know that the vast majority of us as Americans have so much more in common than what separates us. And I also believe that I am accurate in knowing that most Americans want a leader who brings us together as Americans and not someone who professes to be a leader who is trying to have us point our fingers at each other.
So you want to basically eviscerate the Second Amendment. You want to bring in tons and tons and millions of newcomers. You want to make sure that people can do whatever they want with a baby at any time that they basically want. You want to tax us into oblivion. You want to put price controls on food. I'm pretty sure there's a lot more that divides us than that brings us together. It's the opposite of what you're saying. Completely opposite. None of us want to have anything to do with the crap that this woman is saying.
I think people are exhausted with that approach, to be honest with you. I think people want a leader who has...
So you know what this tells me, and it probably tells you? She's never even sat down with Trump voters. She's never even taken the time to say, you know what, let me find out what some of these people actually think. What drives them? What makes them tick? Because if she did, she couldn't possibly have just said what she has said in this interview. This interview is the divisiveness that she's trying to avoid.
Common sense and tries to find common ground. I'm supported by over 200 Republicans who worked for both Presidents Bush, John McCain, and Mitt Romney.
200? Wow. That's incredible. Out of like maybe, 80, 90 million, you're supported by 200 Republicans? Oh my God, we're quaking.
I'm supported by the former Vice President Dick Cheney, former Congress member Liz Cheney.
You mean the person who got bounced out of her position, lost by like 30 or 40 points because the people in her own state said, nah, we don't want you. And you're touting that? You're actually wearing that as a badge of honor that Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney are behind you? You have no idea. You have never, ever sat down and talked to anybody who's a Trump supporter.
And I think people are more willing now, in light of the hate and division that we see coming out of Donald Trump, to say, hey, let's put country first.
Has she not played a tape of her own rally and the stuff that she says? Has she never watched MSNBC? Has she never turned on CNN and watched Jim Acosta? Has she not watched Morning Joe? Can this woman be more obtuse than she is?
And I think that just makes us stronger and more healthy as a country. To say, look, we can all debate our differences around, various policies, but let's stop with the division. Like, enough of that. Let's bring everybody together.
And finally, as you introduce yourself to America in a new way, they've heard much of your story at the Democratic National Convention in that debate earlier this week. If there's one thing that you wish Americans knew about who Kamala Harris is that you don't think they know yet, what would that be?
I don't know. I mean, probably it's not very different from anybody watching.
She's going to whip out some hot sauce, like Hillary. She's going to talk like ain't no way tired. What do we need to know something about you? And she's like, I don't know.
Right now, I love my family.
Oh, that's great.
One of my favorite things that I lately have not been able to do is Sunday family dinner. I love to cook. I have incredible friends. My best friend from kindergarten is still my best friend. I think that, I have a career that really, and I said it the other day, as a career prosecutor, I never asked a victim of crime, were they a Republican or a Democrat. The only thing I ever asked them is, are you okay? And I think that's the approach that most Americans want, regardless of who they voted for in the last election, in terms of turning the page and charting the way forward.
I can't take it anymore. This woman can't help but lie. She wants her own words. Oh no, I don't want to take away anyone's guns, but what I want to do is make it as hard as possible for you to use it and own it. Universal background checks, and we're going to check, and we're going to determine whether or not you have anything in that background that's going to, stop you from being able to own a weapon. we're going to do an assault weapons ban. We're going to take away your AR-15 because it shouldn't be in your hands. Man.